Well, good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I am your host, as always, Tony DeFio, and I thank you for joining us. Quite pleasant second in Friday evening, December 2nd, and it's 50-some degrees. And you know me, I don't like cold weather anymore at the age of 50, so anything above 50 is good by me. And as I always say, I hope it's nice and pleasant wherever you are right now, whether watching me live or listening to me later. All right, before I continue with tonight's show, I want to ask you, please, as I always do, to like and subscribe to Behind the Steel Curtain's Facebook and YouTube channel. Bring you live shows each and every day and night, including this show. Earlier on Friday, we had the Touchdown Under show with Matty Peverall and Mark Davison. We will have post-game coverage on Sunday with Jeff, Brian, Anthony Davis, and Dave Schofield. Monday, we have the Hangover with Brian, me, and Shannon White. Tuesday, we have the Scobro Show with Dave and his brother Rich Schofield. Wednesday, we have Know Your Enemy with Jeffrey Benedict and Shannon. Thursday, we have the preview with Jeff, Hartman, Dave, and Brian. We Run the North with Kevin Tate and his buddies. They discuss all things AFC North related. And you can catch all those shows live on Facebook. And you can also check them out. And please also check out our audio-only host of shows, including Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman, The War Room with Matty Peverall, Bad Language with Brian Anthony Davis. Here we go, the Steelers Show with Brian and Kevin. Kevin Smith. From the Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey Benedict. The Steelers Fix with Andrew Wilbar and Jeremy Betts. The State of the Steelers with Dan and Kyle Kreis. So please check all those out. And also check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website. We bring you news, commentary, film breakdown, and we bring that to you each and every day. And we're always updating the site. It's the hardest working Steelers site around, and you will not be sorry. Check it out. And let's see who we have in the live chat with us tonight. Who was the first one in? Kathy Ford. Who's asking if Daredevil's there. Of course, Daredevil has to be here. He's always here. George Teston. Let's Ruin It Randy. That's a pretty good one. I like that name. And Kathy says she's interrupting her packing just to listen and watch the six-pack, and I am honored. Where are you going? Hope it's a nice tropical destination. Deb Skovronski is with us. Brad Jewett. I haven't seen Brad in a while. Brad Jewett's with us. Welcome, Brad. Daredevil. There's Daredevil. He's right here. Just Me is with us. Randall Jordan, who says next game against the Falcons, Steelers 23-20, they win. All right. Well, that's a interesting prediction. Brian Brown is with us. Okay, we have a nice group in here tonight. And let's talk about, first of all, the Pittsburgh victory over the Colts on Monday night, a 24-17 victory. And I thought in many ways it was Pittsburgh's most complete game of the year. And it's becoming a more common theme as of late because I thought the same thing after the Saints win 20 weeks later. But I thought Pittsburgh controlled things for the vast majority of Monday's game. They jumped out to a 16-3 first half lead. They really should have had probably a bigger lead, but for them, 16-3 is pretty good. And the offense was efficient. They may have left some points on the field, but 16-3 is a pretty good lead. And the defense is playing lights out in that first half. But then the second half, Dallas Flowers returned the second half kickoff, 89 yards, and that seemed to shift the momentum. And by late in the third quarter, the Colts had taken a 17-16 lead, and you kind of had that weird sinking feeling that, all right, here we go again. Pittsburgh's going to let one get away, kind of like they did against the Bengals. You can say the same thing against from the Patriots game, of course, the Jets game when they blew a 20-10 fourth quarter lead. So you kind of had that here we go again feeling. But to their credit, the Steelers offense answered the Colts' second touchdown of the second half by marching 75 yards on 11 plays, and they took a 22-17 lead thanks to a Benny Snell football 2-yard touchdown. And then they went ahead 24-17 when Pickett found George Pickens in the right corner of the end zone for the 2-point conversion. So the Colts had two more chances to try to tie the game, but Pittsburgh's defense held strong, and Pittsburgh walked away with its second win in 3 games. That's almost a winning streak. Not quite, but almost. So I thought the offense was pretty efficient most of the day. They didn't turn the ball over again. That's been a common theme as of late, not turning the football over. Kenny Pickett was 20 of 28 for 174 yards, no touchdowns, but again, no turnovers, no interceptions. And I thought in many ways he played his best game. I mean, I think some of the throws that he completed in that game, even ones that he didn't, they were world class in my opinion. They were first round caliber passes. There was a sideline pass to Pickens late in the game. That third 9 completion to George Pickens across the middle. To me, that was a fantastic throw, and it showed great anticipation by Pickett and obviously great accuracy. He threw Pickens open, which is what you want to see from a young quarterback. But I thought his best throw of the game showed off his best attribute, and that's throwing on the run. And that's when he rolled to his right and found Pickens in the back of the end zone for the 2-point conversion. And he threw it where only really Pickens could catch it. And to me, that was the thing I was looking forward to seeing from Pickett all summer and into the season. That's something that a lot of people, including Brian, a former player and NFL analyst, I mean, he talked about Pickett's ability to throw and a run and how it was Patrick Mahomes-esque, which I thought was interesting. But whether or not he's at that level or not remains to be seen, but it's certainly one of his biggest strengths, meaning Pickett. So that was fantastic to see. So, people question Pickett's arm strength, and I think he has enough arm strength. And they were questioning his accuracy going into the game. But as I said last week, that probably has more to do with him being a rookie and trying to process everything and trying to figure everything out on the run than it is about his sudden loss and the ability to be accurate. I think once the game starts slowing down for him, his accuracy will return, which, as again, it was the number one attribute, one of his top attributes coming into the league was his accuracy. I don't think that suddenly goes away. So you basically have to, I think when you're a young quarterback, you have to figure out the speed of the game and the fact that college open is not nearly the same thing as NFL open. And sometimes you have to be willing to fit passes into tinier windows because those windows are smaller to begin with and they close a lot faster, even more so. So I thought it was a great efficient game by Pickett, and I thought it was the defense's best game. I think the defense played its best game. There were a couple hiccups there in the third quarter, but again, I think that 89-yard kickoff return shifted the momentum and kind of put the Steelers and their defense back on their heels a little bit. And besides, the defense didn't, they had to defend 20 yards, so I mean, it's hard to even pin that touchdown on the defense, but I guess they could have limited Indianapolis to a field goal. So, but all in all, I think it was a great game by the defense. They had a couple of crucial takeaways. Alex Highsmith played a great game. What do you have? Another sack, forced fumble. I mean, he's really coming on. And as we talked about on Monday on The Hangover, people are always going to question his true abilities because TJ Watt's on the other side. But, it's not his fault that an all-time great pass rusher is opposite him at outside linebacker. He still has to go out there and make plays and execute. And he's gotten better each and every year. And that's all you can ask for from a third-round pick. And, if he keeps improving at this rate, he's going to be a superstar. And TJ Watt may have nothing to do with that. So kudos, Alex Highsmith. And kudos to the running game. Going back to the offense, as the title of the show suggests, the offense continues to soar on the ground, if that makes sense. It's really 3 games in a row that the ground game has been quite effective. Obviously, the Saints, they were extremely effective, 217 yards. But even against the Bengals, I thought they ran the ball well. They only had 102 yards, but I mean, I think you'll take that most weeks, 102, especially if 90 of them are coming from your starting running back, Najee Harris. And of course, this past Monday, they had 172 yards. And, it was so frustrating watching them try to run the ball through the first, how many games? 8 games before the bye. And it seemed like a fruitless endeavor. A futile enterprise, if you will. It just, people kept talking about, well, you have to establish a run. But if you're, running 10, 15 times in a game and you're getting nowhere, you're not going to want to keep going. You're going to want to switch things up and start passing. And that's why you saw in a lot of those games with Pickett, even though he's a rookie quarterback, you saw him dropping back 40, 50 times a game. And that's not what you want from a rookie quarterback. You want more what you saw on Monday, and that's 28 dropbacks, really efficient work. So, it's a testament to the Steelers that they figured out a way to get better at the running game. And it's probably just a matter of them, as people often say about the offensive line, it's a matter of these 5 guys getting used to playing with one another, getting used to playing together, getting used to each other's tendencies and trusting one another and getting their timing down. And, I think it's coming through now. They are running the ball effectively. The whole idea about pounding a rock and hammering that rock until you break it, that's nice to say. But again, if you're not effective running the ball right from the very beginning, and if it continues through a half, you're probably not going to stick with it. And to their credit, they've been effective running the ball right from the very beginning over the past 3 games. And I think that's led to a much more efficient offensive performance, specifically from Pickett, who doesn't have to drop back and pass 40, 50 times in a game. So, if they continue to run the ball the way they have been, then they're going to control a lot more games as far as time of possession, as far as keeping the defense fresh. And that's going to make Kenny Pickett more effective. If they have to respect the run more, then it should open up the pass. We'll see what happens. I'm certainly no expert in that regard. All I know is it's hard to have a one-dimensional offensive attack when you have a rookie quarterback. It just is. You want your ground game to be effective. You want your ground game to control the pace of the game, and that's what they've been doing the last 3 weeks. So, While we're on the subject of the ground game, what about Benny Snell football? I mean, here's a guy who's really been in the doghouse as far as Steeler fans are concerned, really since the end of 2020, when people started calling him Benny Snell. There's a lot of, as there often is, when Snell was drafted in the 4th round in 2019, there was an awful lot of hope and hype surrounding him. He had a really productive career, 3,800 yards, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons at Kentucky. Considered to be a downhill runner, great personality, great smile, great nickname, the whole 9 yards. And he had a really decent rookie year. I mean, he did have a great rookie year for him. I shouldn't say great, but he came on at the end, and he almost led the team in rushing with 426 yards for that really compromised 2019 offense without Ben Roethlisberger. And his 2020 season started out really well when he rushed for 113 yards in Week 1 against the Giants, when he had to come into the game to fill in for an injured James Conner. But really, that was Snell's last great moment as a running back for the next 2 years. I mean, he only carried the ball 92 more times for 255 yards over the final 50 games of 2020. Last year, he had 36 carries for 98 yards. And this year, Sunday, he had 0 carries. He was simply a special teams player, and he only had a few offensive snaps all year. But the problem with last Monday was Jaylen Warren was out. And then Najee Harris had to leave Monday's game with an abdominal injury, one that, as it turned out, required a visit to the hospital. That's how bad that was. So Anthony McFarland, who was on the practice squad, he had to step up, but he only had 5 carries, for 30 yards, which was a good average, but he only had 5 carries. But as it turns out, the guy who really stepped up in the second half, especially, was Benny Snell, who carried 12 times for 62 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, and he scored the game-winning touchdown. He showed great vision and determination on that touchdown. And I thought Benny Snell looked really, really good in that game. And to me, what does that say? I think it says that Benny Snell was kind of a victim of circumstance. He came to the Steelers right when their offense went from being a strength to a weakness, starting with the loss of Roethlisberger in Week 2 of 2019. Then 2020, that whole mess. In 2021, the offense was no better. Of course, you lost all these star power with AB and Lev Bell, and the offensive line got old. Ben got old. They switched coordinators. The offense has really been a mess Benny Snell's entire career, and he just got caught up in it. It's not easy being a first-round pick and coming into a situation like that and trying to excel. Ask Najee Harris, who's had his ups and downs. Try asking a 4th-round pick to thrive in that environment. So I think that's with Snell's major problem. Too much hype for a 4th-round pick, which all these draft picks get way too much hype now because of social media. Even the lower round picks just get way too much hype, and they have way too many expectations heaped upon them before they even set foot in training camp. So that was part of Snell's problem. But the other part was the Steelers just plain stunk at running the ball over his first 3 years here, 2+ years. But they've been showing lately, the offensive line, that they can block for anybody and they can open holes. And if they continue to be this effective, anybody can be effective as a running back behind that line. So I think Snell was able to show off his true talents last Monday, which he showed glimpses of in his rookie year. And of course, in Week 1 of 2020, that didn't suddenly just all disappear. It's just the line got old, slow, and it had to be rehabbed. And I'm not saying Benny Snell's on the caliber of Najee Harris or who knows, maybe even Jaylen Warren, but I think Snell's talents didn't just disappear, overnight. So kudos to Snell, kudos to the offensive line, and more importantly, let's hope that the offensive line continues to open holes for the running game. Let's hope it continues to gel and they improve in all areas, including protection, everything. So I'm excited about the running game. Not that I think, I buy into the myth that you have to run first or you run to set the pass or any of that stuff. But I think with a rookie quarterback, again, to repeat myself, you have to have an effective running game. And now they have that. At least they have the past few weeks. So we'll see what happens moving forward with the ground game. And on that note, at the 21:10 mark, I'm going to take this opportunity to allow you folks on the audio side to hear a word from our sponsors. I will be right back on the Six Pack. And welcome back, kids. Welcome back to the second half of the Friday Night Six Pack with Tony Defio. I am he or him, and I thank you for joining me and sticking with me. And let's see what people were saying about Brian Brown. Kathy Ford says, and he's got the Jets. Kevin Brokenborough, and by the way, welcome, Kevin. Snell run well. I like that. That's good. If he becomes a star, that might stick. And Randy says, well said, Tony. Well, my ego thanks you because I have a fairly sizable one. And let's see. What else we have here? This is from Claude Bishop, who joins us from YouTube. Welcome back, Claude. And he says, Benny has proven that the more carries he gets, the better he gets during the game. Yeah, and I think you hear that about a lot of running backs. I mean, I think a lot of running backs will tell you, ask Jerome Bettis, get me going. You always hear Jerome mic'd up, keep me going, get me in the game, give me some carries. But I think the problem with as I mentioned in the first half of the show, the problem that you saw with the Steelers over these past couple of years really is, there was no point after a while of trying to get any of these guys a lot of carries because it's just there were no holes. And you can give a guy the ball 20 times, if he gains 40 yards, what difference is that going to make? So, I guess there's the whole the theory that you wear the defense down, but I think you wear the defense down by blocking them on their butts and getting and as they get run over, by the tackles and the guards and the centers. And then, obviously the running backs do their part too in playing a bulldozer. I think that's how you wear the defense down with the running game. You don't wear the defense down by running into it 40 times for no yards. So, but yeah, I think Snell, just like a lot of running backs, I think the more carries they get, the more effective they are, especially if there are holes, because they can kind of develop some chemistry with the line. They know what holes to hit. They know where to go. They get a better feel. If you have nowhere to go, and I think we saw this with Najee Harris in that Philadelphia game, you kind of start getting into your own head. Like you don't expect any holes to open up as soon as you get the ball. You expect to be hit. You expect to have to cut back or take the run or take the play in the opposite direction of where it's designed to go, because you don't trust your line to open the holes for you. But I think we're seeing more and more that these guys are getting better at opening holes. So and being consistent blockers in the running game. So I look for them to get much better as the season winds down. Starting with this Sunday, by the way, in Atlanta, and let's talk about that game. I anticipate a good game. I like Atlanta. I like the Falcons. I think they have an interesting young team. They remind me a lot of the Steelers, meaning they're young and they're clearly rebuilding, but you see some glimpses of hope from them. Their ground game is really, really good. They're fourth overall in rushing. They have four guys on their team, four running backs, or four offensive players, I should say, who have 300 yards or more, including Cordero Patterson, and Marcus Mariota, the quarterback, who has 421 yards on the year. And, Mariota, you can say what you want about him. Former number 2 overall pick. He's bounced around a bit. He's now in Atlanta. You can say what you want about him, but he's having a pretty decent year. He has 2,052 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. His quarterback rating is 89.5. That's not bad. He's been effective by and large this year. Again, the Falcons have a fantastic running game. They spread it around. Patterson has been he's kind of like a Deebo Samuel, except he's not really much of a receiver this year, just more on the ground. But they have 4 guys that are effective on the ground. And so, they don't have a conventional running game. They don't have like a downhill kind of, pound the rock kind of a running game. But it's still effective. It's obviously been very effective. And that's going to be a challenge for Pittsburgh's defense on Sunday, I think. But I have a feeling that Pittsburgh's going to be up for that challenge because they've improved from last year when they were dead last against the run or next to last. Now they're 6th or 7th against the run this year. So, and they seem to do pretty good against running type quarterbacks. They seem to have a pretty good history against them. People like Lamar Jackson. So, if you can defend Lamar Jackson, who I think is a much better quarterback than Marcus Mariota, then you can handle Mariota. At least you should feel confident that you can handle Mariota. So, I think it's going to come down. It may come down to the Falcons running attack versus Pittsburgh's grounded defense, rush defense. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to look for. Kyle Pitts, the fine young tight end, he's out for the year now, so he won't play. But Drake London's been having a fairly decent rookie year as a receiver, so he might have to step things up. As far as overall, I mean, they're ranked 27th, even though they're ranked 4th against or 4th rushing the ball. They're ranked 27th overall on offense, and they're ranked 28th overall on defense. So this might be a game where Pittsburgh's offense could really do some damage. Similar to what they did against the Bengals in the first half before they kind of imploded in the second half. They ran the ball effectively and they passed the ball effectively against the Bengals over the first 2 quarters. And then the Bengals made adjustments and the offense was pretty much non-existent in the second half. But, the Bengals are a much better team right now than are the Falcons. So I think Pittsburgh could do some damage, both on the ground and in the air. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I have a decent feeling that Pittsburgh might be able to pull this out. But the Falcons, they're in that really horrible NFC South division, which at 5-7, they're in the mix for first place. So they're going to have something to play for. Having said that, if Pittsburgh does win this game, they'll improve to 5-7. That's, first of all, it'd be their first winning streak of the year, 2 games. But second of all, at 5-7, you might start feeling a little bit of hope for a playoff run, believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy to say, but you might begin to have visions of grandeur when it comes to, is that the right phrase? When it comes to a playoff run down the stretch. At 5-7, Pittsburgh would be only 1 game behind New England, who is still considered to be, quote unquote, in the hunt for a playoff spot. And I know New England defeated Pittsburgh, which would give them the tiebreaker, but I'm not really talking about that right now. I'm just talking about Pittsburgh somehow finding itself in the mix for the playoffs at 5-7 if they win this game. And then you have the Ravens coming up at home. And if you're 5-7 and going against the Ravens, say the Ravens are, I guess it'd be 8-4 at best, 8-4 because they lost last week to the Jaguars. Then, Acrisure Stadium is going to be on fire for that game because I think the fans are going to realize that this might be their last gasp at the season staying relevant. So they're going to be fired up about that game against the Ravens. So, then you have the Panthers, Raiders, Ravens again, Browns to finish things out. So, if they win this game on Sunday, improve to 5-7, I think people are really going to start talking playoffs. They're going to start trying to maybe fool themselves or trick themselves into believing that Pittsburgh could go on a run. Now, if they lose to fall to 4-8, I think that pretty much seals the deal as far as their season and being in the playoff hunt, because I don't see them going from 4-8 to 9-8 to stay in the hunt. So I'm looking for this to be an exciting game, and I look forward to go down to the wire, because why wouldn't it? All Pittsburgh games seem to go down to the wire, except for when they played the Bills and the Eagles. So I think this might be a game that goes into overtime. So I'm really excited about watching this game. I think it's going to be a good matchup, and I think you're looking at two teams that the Falcons, they're really young, but I don't know what their plans are for Mariota. Do they want him to stay on as your quarterback? I can't. Given his age, I think he's 29, 30. They may want to try to draft a quarterback this coming year, depending on where they finish. But you never know. I mean, if Mariota can resurrect his career, he's still young enough that he could lead a really good young Falcons team into the future. And from what I understand by listening to their play-by-play man on a local segment today on 93.7 The Fan, the Falcons they're going to have like $100 million in cap space next offseason. So, I mean, they can improve real fast. So, they have a lot of young talent, and their prospects for a bright future seem to be there. So they seem to be where Pittsburgh, they seem to be maybe a step or two ahead of where Pittsburgh's at right now, based on their play and the talents they have. But of course, they've been drafting in the top 5 and 10 a lot lately, so that helps with the talent factor. But they seem to be maybe a year ahead of where Pittsburgh is talent-wise. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams match up. As far as Pittsburgh's injury situation, Keller Witherspoon is out again. Jalen Warren is questionable with the hamstring, and TJ Watt, as of Friday, is questionable with a rib injury. So, yikes. How about that guy, huh? He's been relatively quiet since he came back. And now he's injured again. I'm not sure if he's, when they say questionable, it's hard to on a Friday before a game. Now it's hard to imagine a player playing. So at this point, I'd say if I had to put odds on it, I'd say there's 40-60 against him playing, or 40-60 for him. 40% chance he's going to play if I had to bet. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and we'll now open things up in comments from you fine folks in the live chat. And this is from Kevin Brockenborough of the Falcons. They remind him of Baltimore. That's actually a good comparison. They have a strong running game, running back by committee, basically, and they have a decent running quarterback in Mariota. All right. Christopher 11. Welcome, Christopher 11. By the way, I haven't seen you in a while. And he says, and I think this is true, because Atlanta is a transient city, meaning they have a lot of people who aren't from Atlanta. I think that's the right definition. Kind of like Phoenix. And he says, expect a ton of Steelers fans in attendance. Atlanta is like Pittsburgh South. Yeah, I mean, a lot of cities are like Pittsburgh when they go on the road, but I expect Atlanta. I expect at least a 50-50 split in Atlanta. I'm looking forward to seeing the crowd. George Tesson brings up a good point. Speaking of which, 48% Steelers fans in Indy. That's right. It was a almost an even split in Indianapolis. All right. And this one is from Kathy Ford. He says, I thought about going to the game or the NFR. I don't know what that means, but New Orleans won out. We'll maybe watch from Manning's. Okay. All right. I guess I jumped in on a conversation. I should have vetted myself. And this one is from George Tesson, who asked, Tony, have you gone to a game yet this year? I have not. Usually these are the years I go to games when they have a subpar record. I don't have season tickets, so I don't know. I don't like cold weather, honestly. In case you haven't caught on to that, I'm not a very big fan of cold weather. So I mean, if somebody offers me a ticket to Baltimore or one of the last games, I just might turn them down. I don't know. Unless it's, who knows? Maybe if it means something, I might go. Especially if it's like 1 o'clock. That's not too bad. But I'm not a big fan of cold weather. But no, I've not. The last game I went to was week 2 in 2017. My buddy from Philadelphia, the Philly area, Maryland, Greg, he came into town and we went together. It was a fun game. They beat the Vikings. That was the 13-3 year. All right, this one from Mark Malone, the famed quarterback from the 80s, and he asks, I wonder which backs will be active. Aren't they all banged up except McFarland? Yeah, Najee's banged up, but he did say he was going to play. By the way, speaking of injury news, Najee Harris did say he expects to play on Sunday, so we'll see. But yeah, Warren's banged up. He's questionable. As far as Snell, I didn't really hear anything about him, any kind of, at least not anything serious. So I expect him to play for sure. And this one from Kevin Brokenborough about the playoff possibilities. He says it's not crazy at all. Yeah, if they win this week, improve to 5-7. I mean, that looks a lot better than 2-6 did about a month ago. So, then it becomes almost like, all right, if we beat the Ravens, meaning them, not me, if the Steelers beat the Ravens, now we're 6-7, and you got Carolina coming up, and then the Raiders. You start to believe a little bit, right? You never know. So. This is from Biggie Bronco, the famed Biggie Bronco, who says, congratulations, you guys, on your win. Well, thank you. It was a big win. And again, I liked a lot of what I saw from the running game, but more important, I shouldn't say more importantly, but I think, people are still like the Pickett, how can you like 20 of 28 for 174 yards? I like it because of some of the throws he completed, how accurate he was, and how he would have had a touchdown if Deontay Johnson would have held on to a pass in the end zone. And by the way, that was one of Pickett's best passes. Again, the one that he tried to complete for a touchdown to Johnson. So, he looked really accurate. And a lot of the throws that he made were the kind of throws that you want to see a quarterback make to give you a reason to believe that this quarterback can be a good to great one, So again, that third down completion to Pickens in the fourth quarter, that was, to me, that was elite level. That pass, the anticipation, everything, the way he threw him open, and then of course the rollout completion to Pickens for the 2-point conversion. Those were two big time passes that if I'm a scout, that's what I want. Those are the kind of passes I want to see from a quarterback prospect. As far as Biggie Bronco, this one from George Tesson about Biggie. Good thing your Broncos didn't get Claypool. Yeah, Claypool has been non-existent. I don't know what that's all about in Chicago. I mean, you traded a second-round pick for that guy, and he's doing nothing there. He was supposed to be a weapon for for Justin Fields. And really, I mean, I haven't seen one highlight of that guy since he left. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's one of those deals where the Bears get burned so badly by this trade, especially if Pittsburgh finds a good prospect with that second round pick, that those two teams may never trade again. From the CUDA 70, who says, really, except for the Bills and Eagles, this team, meaning Pittsburgh, has been in every game and could have won them. Yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. It's an optimistic way of looking at it, because it's really true. You're talking about the Patriots game. The Browns contest kind of got away from them at the end, but they were in that game. Obviously, the Jets, you have a 20-10 lead. The Bengals 2 weeks ago. I mean, there's a lot of examples. The Bills and the Eagles are the two best teams in the league, perhaps. I think the Chiefs and the Cowboys and the Vikings might have something to say about that, but certainly they're up there. And Pittsburgh's just not in their league quite yet. But again, other than those two, as you say, the CUDA, they've been in every game this year. And I expect that trend to continue down the stretch based on their schedule and based on the way they play the Ravens. Doesn't matter what the records are. Those two teams always seem to have close matchups. All right. This is one from Carrie or Carl. I can't make out the is it an L or an I? Anyway, and they're talking about Ben's broadcast, his football and YouTube podcast, but you can also find, I guess, on the audio side. And this one, he talks about Spence, the co-host, and he said he would rather have a co-host with football knowledge. That's a good point. I mean, but here's the thing about that show is, if you watch the whole thing, and I've watched a few episodes from beginning to end, it's really like 80%, even when he has his old teammates on, it's really like 80-90% just talking about beer and life and screwing around, and like maybe 10 or 20% football, so I'm not sure I think Spence might be the his co-host for a reason, because he doesn't want a football guy. He doesn't want to talk football that much. But I am impressed with Ben's personality. He's more Terry Bradshaw than I thought. He's more easygoing and laid back, and he has a sort of more of a natural sense of humor than I thought. I mean, of course, he's in his own element. Literally, he's in his house when he does his podcast, so that helps. But yeah, he's really a much better TV personality than I ever thought he would be. So if you haven't watched Ben's football and podcast, check it out. And this is a good point by Kevin Brokenborough, who's been a really great contributor to tonight's show. And he brings something up that I should have mentioned in my main points, but I forgot, because gosh darn it, I just forgot. And he says, I expect the Steelers special teams to be a big part of the victory. That's true. Or it could be a big part of the loss. Why do I say that? Because Cordero Patterson is one of the all-time great kickoff return specialists in NFL history. He has 9 career kickoff returns in his career. And Matthew Wright, he's taken the place of Chris Boswell after Boswell went on the IR. He's been great. Wright's been great in field goals, much stronger leg than I thought. Fairly accurate, except for one or two instances where he really wasn't. But he's been really good in that regard. But as far as kickoff returns or kickoffs, he can't boot him through the end zone like Boz is capable of. And we saw last week, Flowers took one from 8 yards deep and almost took it to the house. And if you think Patterson's going to just take a knee in the end zone, I don't care if it's 109.5 yards or 9.5 yards deep into the end zone. If Patterson gets his hands on a kickoff, he's bringing it out. And I say that because he'd be crazy not to, based on how much the coverage unit struggled against the Colts last week. So that could be, Patterson could be prove to be a vital part to a Steelers loss. So that's one thing that had to be shored up this week, or at least been a focus for Danny Smith and company. That's the coverage teams, because it could be vital in Sunday's game. So thank you for reminding me of that, Kevin. And this one is from Randy Wagner, who says, Tony, I live in Atlanta, and 50% of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Falcons' home, will be Steelers fans. That's what it appeared to be the last time the Falcons hosted Pittsburgh when he was there. Yeah, I expect nothing less. I think, with the Falcons not having a great year, for one thing, despite the fact that I think they're coming on, and with Pittsburgh fans being everywhere, Steeler fans being everywhere, yeah, I expect a 50-50 split on Sunday. It's going to be an exciting atmosphere. 5-7 against 4-7. Whoever would have thought that? But Pittsburgh. It's a ravenous sports fan base. Holy cow! And this is from Darren Dalton, who I haven't seen, and it's got to be months at least. And he says, Big Tony, it's been too long. Hope you've been well, man. And I have been well. I hope you've been well too. It's been so long since I've seen you. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the show. Good to see you, man. George Teston says, never estimate an NFL team. Well, if you mean the Falcons, Pittsburgh can't overestimate or underestimate anybody, I should say. They're 4-7. They have a worse record. I think they're underdogs again. So no, there's no team that I'm overlooking, and nor should they be overlooking anybody, nor should any of the other fans be overlooking anybody this year. All right. This is one from Biggie Bronco, who's asking me and everybody else. And he says, let me ask you all a question from the outside looking in. Do you think it's the head coach in Denver, or do you think it's Russell Wilson? Well, I'll let everybody else ponder that. But if I had to guess based on the perception of Nathaniel Hackett, the Broncos' first-year head coach, and the opinion of him, and the fact he seems to be over his head, I'm going to go with it's the coach and not Wilson. Because why would Russell Wilson suddenly be this bad? He was an MVP candidate not that long ago. Now all of a sudden he can't figure out a way to play quarterback. So I think it might be the coach and not Wilson. At least not yet. Unless he hit a wall that I'm not aware of. All right. Michael O'Malley says, this game worries me due to being back-to-back road games in a short week. Yeah, it's a factor. It's hard to win on the road in the NFL, period, but it's especially hard to do it in back-to-back weeks and on a short week. So that could play a factor, no doubt. But at least Pittsburgh's still in the same time zone, right? No, the Colts are an hour behind. It's only an hour, so it's not really. And plus, they've been in Pittsburgh all week preparing, so it's that time won't be that won't factor in. All right. Randy Wagner says, what was the reason the run game looked good Monday? Blocking, running, play calling, etc. I think it was the blocking. I think it's the fact that they're starting to gel as a unit, and they've been effective running the ball relatively. Since the bye, and I think it's just they've been getting better and better in that regard. And I think that was it's the blocking. It comes because when you see Harris, not just Harris, but Warren's had his moments before he got hurt, and McFarland looked good during his 5 carries, and of course Benny Snell looked really good. I think the fact that all those guys have looked effective at various points since the bye tells me it's the blocking. The blocking's gotten a lot better. All right. And this is one from Carl? Yeah, I believe it's Carl. Okay. Do you think the Steelers will draft Joey Porter Jr. if he's available? That's the cornerback from Penn State, PZ's son. I guess it all depends. I'm not sure where he's projected to be drafted. I guess a lot of that will be determined by, the Senior Bowl. Is he a senior? But he's certainly coming up for the draft. But that'll be determined by, the combine and the pro days, et cetera, team needs. But I know he's definitely a first-round prospect. Do I think they will? I don't know. I mean, if he's a top 5 or 10 prospect and they're drafting in that somewhere in that area, then why not? I mean, they certainly need a number 1 corner. And if he's considered a number 1 corner prospect, then I think you have to strongly consider it, based on the fact that, they have Cam Hayward's little brother. They have TJ Watt's big brother, and they have they had Terrell Edmonds' older brother on the team at one point. Clearly they're not worried about the perceptions of nepotism, even though Joey Porter's not with the Steelers anymore. He's certainly a legend. So I don't know. I mean, that's a long ways away. Anything can happen between now and then. So I guess we'll have to wait on that one before we can really definitively weigh in on with an opinion. All right. I think on that note, at the 52-minute mark, I will take this time to bid you all adieu. It was a fun show. I thought it was a productive show. I thought you guys had a lot of great questions and comments, and I thought we covered a lot of ground. Please keep checking back to Behind the Steel Curtain, the website, all weekend as we prepare you for Sunday afternoon's game against the Falcons in Atlanta. Please keep checking back to our podcasting platform, YouTube, Facebook, and any audio platform of your choosing. Check in with Brian, his work this week, Dave, Jeff, the whole gang. The content will never stop coming. And enjoy that game on Sunday. And they get a win. Hopefully they can improve to 5-7. And we can actually start having. But until I talk to you on Monday on the Hangover with Brian and Shannon, have a great weekend. And as always, go Steelers. Everybody have a great weekend.